Hi, this is RJ Podesky, and today I'd like to discuss with you content regarding business reporting, visual analytics, and business performance management. The learning objectives for this content specifically is to be able to define business reporting and understand its historical evolution, recognize the need for and the power of business reporting, understand the importance of data and information visualization, learning different types of visualization techniques, appreciating the value that visual analytics brings to business intelligence or business analytics, knowing the capabilities and limitations of dashboards, understanding the nature of business performance management, learning the closed-loop business process management methodology, and describe the basic elements of a balanced scorecard. So to get started, just exactly what is a business report? A business report contains information that's already been pre-aggregated from other sources and then been used to transform into making a decision. A report can be any communication that's prepared to convey specific information. It can fulfill many functions, such as proper departmental functioning through operations, simply providing information, results of analysis, persuading others in order to act or perform a certain action, and to create organizational or institutional knowledge. A business report specifically is a written document to improve managerial decisions. It can include data from inside and outside the organization through extract, transform, load techniques through data warehouses. It could be represented in the form of text or tables or even graphs or charts. It's usually distributed either potentially in print, but more often now either by email. But with security concerns, organizations are moving even more towards a specific secure portal or intranet to access that. So the process looks such that we would need to acquire the data first, generate that information, use it for decision making, and then build it into our operations or our business function specifically. And this can be represented by this flowchart here. In order to have a successful report, it needs to be clear, it needs to be brief, it needs to be complete, and obviously it needs to be accurate or correct. Sometimes these can be informal in a letter, email, or memo. Sometimes they can be formal reports that are used for internal or external audiences, and sometimes they're just short reports that are potentially periodic or repetitive. Some different types of business reports include ones that help the organization understand where it is in terms of its metrics or its key performance indicators, or even how it's meeting service level agreements for its partners or constituents. This may also be something part of Six Sigma or Total Quality Management with regards to their operations, improving operations from a manufacturing standpoint and knowing whether or not they're meeting certain quotas, manufacturing goals, or quality levels. Others might be dashboard type reports that create graphical representations of different performance indicators using gauges, dials. Here is an example of one through the SolarWinds software from a network performance perspective. And then if I back up here, others would include balanced scorecard type reports that might include areas of key performance indicators across an entire organization. So it would include several different functions such as financial, customer from a sales perspective, maybe business process from a manufacturing perspective, and maybe even some others from a human resource perspective. So the organization has a very global view of how they're performing. Business reporting systems often have some common characteristics. Often this data is being pulled from online transaction processing systems such as point-of-sale systems, inventory systems, transactional ledgers. These can come from our enterprise systems, supply chain systems, some of it even being gathered from sensors, the web, or even radio frequency ID or RFID chip sensors, whether that be something as simple as a toll pass or sensors put on products to understand where they're flowing through the supply chain. The data itself can come in large volumes. It can certainly be a variety of data through those systems being either structured or unstructured, and the velocity, as we've seen in industry, continues to increase. That typically might include some sort of data warehouse that needs the data to be extracted, transformed, and loaded into a model to be able to be aggregated through functions such as OLAP. We got to have a place to store that data in large hard drive storage arrays or storage area networks. We have to build a business logic in order to transform that from an operational system into an analytical system, some way to publish that data and then assure that it is accurate. You'll see this triangle again later on in the presentation, but I think it's worth mentioning again that we can see the level of aggregation becoming broader as we move up the organizational food chain, if you will, where the granularity of the operational data is very much seeing things on a hourly, daily, transaction by transaction piece. And that's where you can see the majority of the data sitting in relational databases or even transactional type reports. Where managerial and strategic functions, you're most likely going to see tools such as data warehouses, dashboards, visualization, and even self-service business intelligence tools used to be able to access that information. So data and information visualization is being able to make use of that visual representation to explore, make sense of, and communicate that data. Our brains are able to process visualization, pictures, images cognitively much more quicker and efficiently than looking at data in a giant spreadsheet that can be overwhelming for our brains to process. So it's an effective method for us to be able to make quicker decisions and hopefully more accurate as well. This data can be aggregated, summarized, provide some context using graphics and including statistics as well. Data visualization is not new. In fact, if we go back to the early 1800s, William Playfair, and even back into the 1780s, created some of our first visualizations to understand import-exports in the use of line charts. We also have other notable researchers, statisticians, and artists like Edward Tufte, who has understood the blend between art and statistics in design in the 20th century. And if we take a look back even just into the 1880s, Dr. Charles Snow used population density maps in an area of London where there was a cholera outbreak in 1883 to better understand that the source of that infection was coming from water pumps, not from air as previously believed. So we can see that throughout time, our sophistication continues to increase. We are moving towards more information visualization, raising that visual literacy, using the internet as a medium, but also incorporating interactivity. So it's not just a one-way piece of communication, but allowing users to be able to filter, sort, aggregate on their own with self-service tools, including things such as animation, 3D graphic rendering, even some of those being simulations, virtualized, and also being able to have access to that data real time. Part of data visualization is also making sure you're using the right chart. And different charts have different purposes. For example, a bar chart is used for comparing similar measurements, such as actual versus budget, where something like a pie chart is showing the distribution measurements or contribution to the whole. In other words, out of 100% of the total, how many people said yes, not how many people, but what percentage of those people said yes, and what percentage said no. Other charts, such as combo charts, can be used for multi-measurements. In other words, blending both a bar and a line chart together. So where my left x-axis, I would see a level of giving, maybe for a church, where my right x-axis would show attendance using a line chart compared to those giving levels. So making sure that you're using the right chart for the right purpose is an important part of visualization and data graphics. Other chart types exist, such as word clouds to identify word frequency using heat maps and density maps overlaid with geographic information. Also using statistical charts such as box plots, histograms, and tree maps can also be effective use. This is what's known as the Gapminder chart, also known as kind of a blend of a bubble chart and a scatter plot to show density within an XY coordinate, and then using the legend on the right to be able to map it to specific geographic regions. So another effective method as well. You can see Gartner Research releases a component or a piece of research every year called Magic Quadrant, and it takes the players that are in the business intelligence space and maps them, whether they are hitting a specific industry or niche, and executing that well, and or whether you are considered a market leader. Both having a high level of completeness in the vision of the implementation and the ability to execute. And so we can see popular names like Tableau, ClickView, Microsoft, IBM, Spotfire as those that are gaining market share but are also being used across a multitude of industries rather than those in the lower left-hand quadrant, which may very well be more niche type products. So visual analytics is a more recently coined term that combines both the ideas of information visualization and predictive analytics, being able to not only focus on what happened and what is happening, which is mostly current or backwards focused, but using it to show predictive, future focused, what will happen and why will it happen. So there's a strong move towards this, trying to take historical data and predict what might happen with regards to customers, their trends, what their purchasing habits might be, or even using geographic mapped data and using animations to show what's happening in the future. Again, kind of comparing this to a future cast for a weather forecast where you might see the climate going. If I looked at this over time, I might be able to see that snow is coming this weekend, for instance, based on the satellite and radar patterns, and comparing that to previous trends. We're being able to do this now using other data sources, again, like I mentioned, with customer data and maybe purchasing trends. Other features of visualization also include performance dashboards. These are commonly used in business performance management software suites and other BI platforms. This is a consolidated view on a single screen, so it can be digested in a single glance, and also being used using drill down techniques to be able to dig more granularly into the data. Here's an example from the software ClickView, where a dashboard has been built to understand revenue versus budget, sales, expenses, receivables, and inventory. See where that is according to where goals might be for the organization, but then also looking back to see what has happened over time. Dashboard design should be able to clearly articulate in a single screen without a lot of distraction, that your brain should be able to process pretty efficiently and pretty quickly. Again, if we take a look at the three layers of information from an operational, managerial, and strategic perspective, we can see at the lowest level we're looking mostly at monitoring activities. Again, answering the question of what happened, why is it happening, and what decisions can we make in the future. In the managerial side, we're looking more at the analysis portion of the data, being able to dig in, do drill downs, do roll-ups, be able to slice and dice the data for analysis, and maybe some even statistical work as well. At the management area, we're using this again more at the high level, where we see more BI type applications, more dashboards, more corporate view of the data. So our performance dashboards should have a visual component and highlight data exceptions that require some action, be transparent to the user. So it shouldn't require a lot of training. It should be very intuitive to the user to be able to use. These dashboards bring in data from a variety of sources, and those could be both internal or external from the organization. Again, allowing the ability to do drill down or drill through or roll up type functions. Be dynamic. It should be timely. So in other words, I shouldn't be looking at data from 3 months ago. I should be able to look at today's data or yesterday's data. And again, these should be more end-user driven tools that are more self-service, so that you don't have to go to IT in order to build them. Best practices, I've mentioned some of these already, but be able to benchmark against industry standards, be able to provide context with some metadata, validate that design by a usability specialist. So in other words, it shouldn't just work for me as an end user, it should work for people across my organization or people that are hired later. So the usability person is also going to help with accessibility issues, which might include color blindness, and some of those issues to make it easier to view. Making sure that it builds in alerts and exceptions so the user can identify issues without having to dig into them and find them later. Being able to provide comments, present the information in those 3 different levels so that I can do both managerial functions, analysis functions, and even a monitoring function at the same time. Using the right visual constructs or charts, and make it guided so that the user can dig and do data discovery without a lot of effort. A concept known as business performance management. Business performance management is a real-time system that alerts managers to potential opportunities, some problems that might exist or threats, and empowers them to react, and then through building of models and collaborating with others. It's also been known as corporate performance management by the Gartner Group, enterprise performance management by Oracle, and strategic enterprise management by SAP, all of them with their own proprietary spin on that term. If we look at business performance management, however, we're looking at the processes, methodologies, metrics, and technologies that are used by enterprises to measure, monitor, and manage business performance. So typically this includes a set of integrated, closed-loop management and analytic tools supported by the technology. So in other words, I should be able to define my strategic goals. I should be able to bring in data in order to manage or measure my performance against those goals, and then I should be able to close that loop and understand what a manager has to do in order to close the gap between the measure and what our current data might say for our organization. So that includes being able to build a strategy and plan, and be able to monitor and analyze by using those analytical tools and dashboards, and then tweak, adjust, act, and then rebuild that strategy and go through that process again. More of a continual improvement process, if anything. So common tasks associated with strategic planning include conducting a current situation analysis, taking a view of the landscape and the environment. There might be regulatory factors, other information relevant to competitors that may need to be pulled in. Identify how are you going to measure your success, and understand what the gap is. You may be lacking certain resources or capabilities in order to achieve that. What's your vision in order for achieving those goals? Building a strategy around that and having objectives and goals in order to achieve those. Bringing that down to a level where most people in the organization are working is the operational plan. So that translates those strategic objectives and goals into a set of well-defined tactics, initiatives, and resource requirements and able to achieve over a certain time period, which is often a year. This can also be tactic-centric or operationally focused. It could also be budget-centric. In other words, well, we're going to build the operational plan based on either how much we're going to invest in it, or maybe it's just how much we have available in order to do that. You can't just go with that plan and expect for success to happen. You have to be able to monitor and analyze and constantly understand how you're meeting those goals so you can constantly tweak, adjust, iterate in order to gauge your progress, which is a lot of the work around this is not just identifying how you're going to be successful, but understand whether or not you're achieving success, whether you're meeting those goals or objectives. And again, what do we do differently? How do we need to act? How do we need to adjust? And if we take a look at the data, many new projects and ventures fail. And oftentimes, it can be because we're not managing those success factors properly. So if we look at that performance measurement system itself, it assists managers in tracking the implementations of business strategy by comparing the actual results against the strategic goals and objectives. So systematic comparative methods that indicate progress or lack thereof, if you're not getting there, against those goals. KPI, or Key Performance Indicators, represents a strategic objective and metric that measures performance against a goal. And so there can be a distinguishing feature of KPIs that might be strategy, targets, ranges, encodings, timeframes, or benchmarks. It's not necessarily specifically a number on the page, if you will. Some of these are outcome key performance indicators that might be revenue, things that happened in the past. Some of them might be drivers, right? So one of them being backward looking at the data to measure whether you're successful, the other one being forward looking to understand what is our forward guidance, or looking forward, what could be an indicator, such as sales leads. Or another instance for e-commerce might be folks that are visiting our webpage and being interested in our products, but maybe not yet purchasing. Okay, this could happen in customer service, sales operations, or even sales planning. Companies will develop a balanced scorecard that provides the overall health of an organization that might include financial, customer, internal processes, learning and growth objectives from a human resource perspective. What are the measures that are driving performance, as indicated by the Harvard Business Review? So in other words, in order to succeed financially, how should we appear to our shareholders? How should we appear to our shareholders based on our business processes? What do we have to be good at? What do we have to learn? How do we have to improve? And how should we appear to our customers? So that's really our balance. Other measures that can be used is using a methodology known as Six Sigma, which tries to regulate, or rather reduce, the number of defects in a business process to as close as 0 defects per million opportunities as possible. So again, using a continual improvement system that is a closed loop system to define, measure, analyze, improve, and control a specific process. Lean Six Sigma or lean manufacturing or production, using more of a pull-based manufacturing process rather than a push-to-demand type of production process. So again, the comparison of balanced scorecard against Six Sigma, if we try to compare these two, a balanced scorecard is more strategic, where Six Sigma is more about performance management, probably more at an operational level. Balanced scorecards are more longer term view, where Six Sigma is going to be what drives our operational performance, sets of measures that impact profitability, accountability, and includes all the business processes, both management and operational. Where the balanced scorecard is designed to help balanced a set of measures around a vision and values, is much more strategic in nature, clarify the vision, strategy, communicating plans, set targets, and enhance feedback. So I hope that this presentation has helped giving you a better idea of visual analytics, performance management systems, operational procedures, and how data can be used in order to achieve those objectives in an organization. Thanks so much.